Hello, everyone. You think by now I'd remember to turn off mute, but no. And Cam, where have you been hiding Dougal, your co-host? Because it's already enhanced your performance out of sight this morning.
Thanks.
So I was just settling the kelpies. Those of you who tune in regularly know that I've got 2 kelpies at my feet here and my bag of dog treats to keep them quiet. And occasionally they do bark, but this is the joys of streaming live from a home office. Welcome, everyone. As Cam said, it is so great to see, as always, our regular faces, names, pets, home offices and everything else. But it's so great also to see some beautiful new faces and names as well. And I know some of you have tuned in from Nebraska and abroad to listen to the fabulous Heather Dawson. So welcome, welcome, welcome. For those of you who don't yet know me, my name is Alex Tullio. I'm the CEO of Financial Executive Women. We are a membership organisation that is all about the positive progression of women. We are about being there every step of the way in the everyday to support our amazing community. We started this now 14, maybe 15 weeks ago in lockdown Mark 1, and our mission was to keep showing up and to be visible and to build this incredible community, and that is what we're doing. So as Cam says, we will keep showing up until, well, there's no end date. So we're going to keep showing up and bringing you some amazing guests and some great wisdom and community. As I always say, for those of you who haven't yet connected with each other, many of you do tell us that you really are a bit shy connecting, linking in with people that you don't know, but building out your network is a big part of what you need to do. Take this opportunity. We have an incredible community. Pick someone off the list that you don't know and send them a comment, chat, and also link in. That's what we're here for as well. So as always, we've got some amazing stuff coming up. For those of you who tune in regularly, that won't surprise you. And as I do say every single day for a reason, please do share this. This is all about community. I've said that a few times already. You'll see there's a link that Cam will put in the chat as well. This is free to all employees of our amazing corporate partners. And we've got loads of people who are joining us that aren't even employees there. So please do join us, share the link, all are welcome. We find this is a great way to connect and share some great wisdom and have a bit of fun along the way. And a bit of silliness too. To our corporate partners, as always, I say thank you. We wouldn't be here without you. And it is so great to see so many progressive organisations partnering with few and really getting on board with meritocracy and positive progression of women and building out great communities and support networks as well. So we love having you here and part of this. So as Cam says, it's Thursday, and I'm not sure about all of you, but we seem to have been in a bit of a time vortex for a while now where the weeks just go so fast. So often I can't believe that it's Thursday again. So today we do have Heather, and I will introduce Heather in a moment. So thrilled to have her here. We've got Mick Philippou coming up next week, and as Cam said, Mick was going to be on today, but some personal circumstances changed that, and I don't know about you, but I think things happen for a reason. I think it is so timely to have Heather on today, and we're going to get right into that momentarily. So Mick's the Chief Customer Officer for Sandstone Technology, really accomplished leader, really, really interesting guy. We're going to be chatting to him on Tuesday. Wednesday is going to be something a bit out of the box as well. So Michael Dixon, now, this guy on our promo, he wanted me to do some karaoke. So I'm slightly nervous about what might happen on Wednesday, but it will be definitely entertaining. And he's a really inspirational leader and expert on creativity. And then on Thursday, I am thrilled to bring you Donna Deswart. Now, Donna is the CEO of Fitted for Work. And what this organisation as a not-for-profit does for women is truly next level. They started out outfitting women to go to their next interview and to make sure they had outfits and build that confidence and resume. And now it's so much more than that. So they are doing some amazing work, and I'm really looking forward to bringing Donna to you. And of course, our masterclasses. So for our members and regulars, you'll know that this is part of your membership. We bring you masterclasses on a very regular basis from some really amazing experts as well. So keep giving us feedback about who you'd like to see, what you'd like to learn more about. but don't forget that this is part of your membership. So make sure that you do make the most of it. And all you need to do is click on the link in the chat that Cam will put up there if he hasn't already, or just go to our website. It's not too late to register. Simon Dowling is on the 24th, and he has been a guest on the show, and Simon is an absolute master collaborator, and a lot of you in his session really resonated with how he was talking about positive influence, and he just does it in such a beautiful way. So don't miss his masterclass. He doesn't do many like this for many people, but we're very fortunate he's doing one for us and our community. Excuse me. So you can still register for Simon. Now, as I always say, if you're not a member yet, why not? We are an incredible community. This live stream is just a small part of what we do. We are there for you every day. We bring you mentoring, we bring you masterclasses, we bring you a whole heap of stuff, as well as a very supportive community. So if you're not yet a member, join us on one of these events at a masterclass as a gift, and experience for yourself why this is such a great community and why I wave my hands around getting super excited about it. So without further ado, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our guest today, Ms. Heather Dawson. Heather, it's so good to have you here. I'm going to intro you formally, and then you and I can just get into a chat. For those of you who don't yet know Heather, she and I have known each other for a long time now. She's been on Fuse Advisory Board from the very beginning. And from a professional standpoint, Heather is originally from the US. She's a former partner at Mercer and Managing Director at Russell Investments. And she's also one of the first 100 certified teachers in the world of Google's top-rated mindfulness and emotional intelligence leadership program, Search Inside Yourself, which is grounded in neuroscience. She's passionate about mental well-being at work, and in 2019 championed a global mindfulness at work initiative for 5,000 employees worldwide at Morningstar. And as she says, a side note, a very cool part of that was launching the initiative on the stage of the famous Chicago Theatre. That's enough formal intro. Let's take this slide down. Heather, yay, so good you're here.
Hi, Alex. So great to be here. So good to be here.
So look, you and I were chatting, as we often do. We chat quite often. And, you know, I think we were sharing last night with each other that it feels like the universe really lined this timing up, because, you know, we were talking about the impact of obviously COVID and me being in Melbourne, you know, the second wave that's happening and the shutdown. And I was sharing with you that I'm, you know, even I'm feeling a bit flat and a bit tired and a bit, God, here we go again. And I think, you know, you were sharing the same. So it's great timing to have you on today.
Oh, it's great to be here. And as we were talking yesterday, one of the things you asked me if we could do again is our minute to arrive.
Absolutely.
And if you have been a part of one of my past sessions, one of the things we like to do is just really bring our attention to being here together and knowing what is going on in the world and the collective, but then also individually what we may be navigating, different stresses, different attention grabbing activities. It can be really hard to just really become present. So one of the ways we can do that is just taking this minute to arrive. So just invite you just right where you are. Well, it's just a short, you can call a mindfulness practice or attention training practice. We're just going to take 1 minute to just be here together. So wherever you are, just find a way of sitting that's both alert and relaxed for you. And you can close your eyes if you want, or look down with the soft gaze, whatever is comfortable for you. And we'll just take a moment to take 3 deep breaths. And if you might be having a particularly busy or stressful day, you might extend the exhale of your last breath just a little bit more. And if your mind wanders, which it will, that's no problem at all. Just bring an intention back to your breath. Just settling in to our short time that we have together. And when you're ready, we can come back together. Thanks so much for giving that a try. And one of the cool things about that, and why we practice attention training practices like that for mental resilience, which is what we're talking about today, is even in that short practice, we do a couple of things. The science tells us we're activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps calm the body and good for stress relief. And we're also activating the prefrontal cortex, which is the executive center of the brain, which helps us be aware of and manage emotions, make sound decisions, which is also what we'll be talking about today. So even in that short practice, hopefully, you might have noticed a little bit of a shift, but your brain also noticed that sort of calming of the mind. So yeah, so thanks again. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I do. You can feel it. It's just that moment. Be great if you could call me every morning, Heather, and just do that with me. I'd find that most helpful to set up my day. So what a great practice. And you know what that made me think of? That made me think of a while ago now, you and I recorded a podcast together. And I'd love it if you shared then, we were talking about your journey and how you came to study this and your fascination with it after a period, a big career, burnout, all sorts of things. So I'd love to get into that. But for everyone listening as well, I just so clearly remember, Heather, we were in the podcast studio and we were talking about, emotional intelligence and mindfulness. And Heather, you just said, guys, can I just take a moment to just center myself? And it was so powerful that, because a lot of it's about, we can say a lot of things, but actually applying those practices to our daily habits is so powerful. And I just really remember that, Heather, that was just you really grounding yourself before we did the podcast and doing something like this. So it's really stuck in my mind how powerful that was. So tell us a bit about your journey to this point.
Yes, happy to. So I'm a native Nebraskan. In fact, my mom's on the call, which is so cool. I think it's about 9 or 10 p.m. in Nebraska, which is great. So I'm a native Nebraskan, fifth generation Nebraska. So grew up on a farm, in a farm family in Nebraska, and then had the great good fortune to actually join the financial services industry in the US. And I spent the first 10 years, a big part of that traveling around the world or traveling around the US, helping people save and prepare for retirement, which was great. Got this opportunity to move to Seattle, Washington. So I was living in the Midwest and then moved to Seattle, Washington to join Russell Investments. And as much as I loved living in Seattle, and it was sort of the end of the grunge time. And so music and all of that was such a fun city. I got this call from the managing director of our Sydney office, and they said, we understand you know something about X. We need that here in Sydney. Would you come? And I guess it was one of those moments in your life, where those sliding door moments where you make a choice. And at that time, I was in a new relationship, and my boyfriend at the time, now my husband, thankfully, decided to come with me. And so we embarked on this adventure, and I didn't know anything about emotional intelligence then, really. I wasn't studying into that, but boy, talk about having to navigate a new country and sort of just really figure out how to be a leader in a new culture as well, in a new country. And that led to, me really starting to get interested in more of the behavioral and the psychology side of business. And then I ended up joining Mercer, and probably about another 10 years in my career, I really faced this point of time where I just burned out, and I was, my health was deteriorating. I was exhausted. I wasn't very happy anymore. And my husband and I just both said, it's time for you to take a break. So I left this really great job and a really good salary and the identity that comes with work. And I just took a break. And I really used that time to really dive into what is it that I need to build? What resources do I need to build within myself to help me, thrive and to help me navigate a career for all of us that's going to be maybe 40 years, maybe 50-year career. And so that started my journey of actually practicing mindfulness, doing yoga practice, but then also learning the bridge into business. And then I became involved at the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute, which for me was the real practical leadership skills we can develop to build our resilience, to actually help us tap into the wisdom of our emotions and to really inspire and motivate other people. So now I still work as a business leader, but I also have this great privilege to teach this wonderful program.
And I think that's probably resonating your story. I mean, certainly you and I have talked about it, resonates with me, you know, the burnout, the big career, trying to get balance, working on yourself, all these things. And I'm sure it resonates with many of our community. I think it's probably worth let's define a bit about what we mean by emotional intelligence, because I think, again, it's one of these phrases that's come, you know, more in the vernacular, especially in business, which is great. But especially during now, I mean, can you define that for us, and how emotional intelligence can really help us navigate where we are and get through this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, emotional intelligence is almost just a different way of being smart, right? It's different than IQ. It builds off of that. But it's really how we understand and have self-awareness of ourselves and our own emotions, our own feelings, what's really going on for us, and then being able to work with those skillfully and from a self-mastery standpoint. And then it also extends into this area of social intelligence, or how we empathize and interact with others, which is a huge part of leadership. And so one of the reasons that I'm particularly interested in continuing to develop the skills and also support others in this is the World Economic Forum is actually now saying it's one of our top 10 skills for the future of work, as well as this cool institute called the Future Jobs Report that sort of came out of Silicon Valley. So it's being able, again, to understand, work with, navigate our emotions, work with them skillfully, and then being able to really understand, be aware, adjust, adapt as we work with other people. So that's how I describe, or how the experts describe what emotional intelligence is all about. And it's particularly helpful right now, and because we live in what's sometimes called a VUCA world, and we're certainly living in that now, with this pandemic that we're all trying to navigate. And that VUCA world is, you know, we're in a volatile, which is the V, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world. And so how we actually resource ourselves to be able to navigate that is extremely important for our own well-being. So yeah, that's what emotional intelligence is all about.
So good. So there's so many ways we could go next. All the questions in my head that I want to ask you. So first thing I'd say is, to this amazing community, like I say, you're not shy. So this is a great opportunity to ask questions, put comments in the chat if what you're curious to know more about. So please do that. So Heather, let's now talk about, because the thing is, as you say, I mean, you're a business leader and you're a practitioner of the Search Inside Yourself program, and you've got passion for both. So, you know, this community, financial and professional services, you know, a lot of our members and the broader community, I mean, it's hard at the moment where we're trying to keep ourselves buoyed and our own energy up. We're trying to look after teams and others. So, and you just mentioned there about, you know, how you can start to get how do you start to integrate emotional intelligence into the practice of being a leader, and from a business lens as well? So I'd like to explore that, but also I think it'd be really interesting, because whenever you and I chat, we chat a lot about, this is not just something fluffy. There is a lot of science and that backs up why this works and why is it important. Can you tell us a bit about that first?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll start with the research, and then we'll talk a little bit about the neuroscience. But from a research standpoint, one of the things that came out in the Harvard Business Review was a study about 5 or 6 years ago of 300,000 leaders around the world, and also interviewed employees of those leaders. And they said, what are the top skills that enable your success, or that you believe are important for success as a leader? And 6 out of the top 8 skills that they found in their research were related to emotional intelligence, inspiring and motivating others, the ability to bounce back from setbacks, the ability to maintain a sense of calm under pressure. So that's kind of that one part. And there's other studies that show that developing emotional intelligence can help enhance our leadership performance and well-being. I also think it's really fascinating from the brain side, and why we link mindfulness and mental resilience and mental training practices into emotional intelligence, because what we know from the neuroscience that's really pretty new over the last 15 or so years is that we can change the structure and function of our brain based on what we focus on and pay attention to. So literally, just like if we went to the gym and we actually were trying to build a muscle, we can actually build the brain, or the brain's gray matter, the certain parts of our brain, by what we focus on and pay attention to. And as it relates to emotional intelligence, what that means is through these attention training practices, we can strengthen areas that relate to emotional awareness, that relate to being able to be self-aware, that relate to empathy, and how we connect with other people, that relate to how we actually, in the executive function, sort of dial down stress and be able to respond skillfully. So it's both this cool part of sort of leadership research that's been done, but then also what the neuroscientists continue to discover about the wisdom of our emotions.
There's so much there. So let's start to take some of that and go, how do we practically, how do we do this in real life, right? Because we all know best intentions, and you try, and I know, again, you and I were even chatting last night, I think it was, just how this was, it's a great reminder to bring you back to daily practice, even for you. And I know I was sharing with you, I said, oh, I'm struggling at the moment. My morning routine and rituals gone out the window again, and I know I should be doing it, but so can you start to give us some really good, just practical, what are practical things that you do? It'd be great to get some insight into your rituals, but also more broadly, what can we do to start really tapping into this?
Mm-hmm. Well, not to kind of sound like a broken record, but one of the things that does help is absolutely being able to practice mindfulness, and actually this mental training that we talked about. And that could be just 1 minute a day, bringing attention to our breath, or bring attention to our body. If the breath is a little bit harder to access in terms of focus, just bringing attention to sitting on a chair and just practicing that attention training, even for 1 minute a day. And then it may increase to 2 minutes or 3 minutes. But if mindfulness isn't necessarily the right, what you want to do, there's other ways to practice too. So journaling is a great one. So a lot of times leaders take time to be able to do self-reflection. And if that's 5 minutes a day, to journal about a challenge that we're facing, or to remember the strengths that we're trying to bring to work, right? What strengths can we really rely on during this time? Journaling can be a really great way to amp up that self-awareness and that emotional intelligence. And I say self-awareness because that's really the foundation of emotional intelligence, and all the other domains actually build off of that. And I think there was a great comment that just came here from Melinda, how to dial down the stress. Yeah. And, really that activating the parasympathetic nervous system is the quickest way to sort of hack into stress and be able to dial it down. And the best way and the easiest way to do that is what we did at the beginning, which is extending the exhale. Exhale at the beginning. And just to tell you, I've been doing it a lot this morning. I've had all sorts of tech trouble this morning. I'm using my husband's computer. We've got construction that all of a sudden started outside. I thought, oh, just of all days that I'm going to be doing our live stream. So I was doing that. How do I bring down my stress quickly? And it was like deep belly breaths, 3 deep breaths, and extending the exhale is a great way to sort of hack into that. And again, activate that rest and recover part of our body.
The thing I love about all of this as well, it also reminds me, when you're saying it can just be a minute, because I think it's easy to think, oh gosh, I should do all this, and that means jumping straight into 20 minutes of meditation or journaling for heart. And it's not. It's start with a minute, these small habits, which I think is a great reminder. Michelle, great to see you. Great question. So Michelle, you can probably see there, Heather, but Michelle's asking, I'd be interested in your comments on the benefits of sleep during times of anxiety. Yeah. And the restorative benefits, perhaps, of literally setting a time to intentionally nap and restore during the day. Would you suggest any other methods?
It's great. We, and just as Michelle said, we all know the importance of sleep, exercise, nutrition, to really resource ourselves during times, and particularly during this time, right, that we've all been navigating for the last 4 or 5 months. So yes, absolutely. I can find for you some more research into sleep. It's not necessarily my area of expertise, but rely on it certainly myself. It's finding what I think is so great about emotional intelligence is, and as Michelle's bringing up, it's being self-aware of what we need to resource ourselves, right? Really tuning in and really checking in with what's really going on for me and what would really support me in building my resilience. And that takes some self-kindness, and that takes some curiosity, and it will be a little bit different for everyone. And it may be, boy, I need to add in a nap. I need to, get 8 or maybe 9 even hours of sleep, even more than normal. So what is it for me that I can resource myself? And the great thing is we can build these inner strengths within ourselves to thrive. And to me, that's one of the most empowering parts of emotional intelligence.
Well, it is, and I love that you're talking about this self-care, and it's great that you've brought that up as well, Michelle, because a lot of us, I mean, we're now in, look at where we are now. We've gone from back-to-back meetings and crowded schedules and overcrowded schedules and burnout to now back-to-back Zoom meetings and elastic-sided days and all that sort of thing. So, yes, it's a broken record on this show. You're all hearing this again and again. You have to put yourself first. We have to manage our own energy, especially, and I think, Heather, you'd agree, especially when we're leaders of other human beings. For us to be present, we've got to really know what's going on with ourselves and really start to look after our energy as well. Hen, you've got a great question there as well. Is EQ a learnt skill? Or do some people just have it while others don't? And just further to that, how can we equip leaders who've been promoted due to their excellent technical skills and work ethic, but struggle with empathy and EQ?
Yeah, it's such a great thing. Here's the great news that emotional intelligence is trainable, right? So just as I was saying before, because of its connection to really our connection to our brain, as we actually bring focus and attention, and if we train our brains in that way, we're strengthening parts of our brain, which actually are key to actually developing emotional intelligence. So key to developing self-awareness, key to developing self-management. One of my favorite things of actually practicing these types of skills, and again, mindfulness is one that we rely on a lot in the Search Inside Yourself program, because it was developed at Google and really tested at Google, is actually being able to actually bring attention not just to our breath and such, but being able to navigate sort of skillfully and move into this area what we call self-management or self-mastery. So once I become self-aware, and it is trainable, that's the good news, I can develop more and more ways to be self-aware, then I can move into the self-mastery that once I'm onto myself and I have clarity with what's really going on, I can make a choice. And one of the practices that we teach and Search Inside Yourself is a really practical way to develop the self-mastery side of EQ, which is, we call it the stop practice. And that starts, so stop. So we notice we're triggered, there's some emotion sort of going on. And let's say we're at work and, we get that email from our boss that, triggers us, that we have to respond skillfully, hopefully not hit reply all. But the stop is to just, the S is to literally stop. And T is take a breath. Yeah, really just, instead of being sort of yanked around by our emotions, just noticing what's going on, taking a breath. The O is observing, and particularly with emotions, they show up physiologically in the body. So bringing attention to where in the body am I actually feeling that emotion. And you can probably think right now, if you got that email from your boss, what would happen? Where would you might feel that? It might be a tightening of the chest, tightening of the throat, face gets hot, bringing attention to the sensations of the body. And the reason we do that is most emotions will pass within 60 to 90 seconds. Mm. And if we give ourselves time to actually bring online the executive center of our brain, we can respond skillfully versus reacting. So the P is in, after we've observed, the P is to proceed with insight once this executive center of the brain is able to come online. So that's a practical skill for developing EQ, but we find, and this is why we teach in the program, that EQ can be developed wherever you are. And as well with that is the empathy piece that goes along of how we relate with others.
Fantastic. Such great advice there. Are you, just on that, Heather, are you finding in your experience that more businesses now are doing more to develop this for their employees rather than the traditional, skills and very technical skills? Like, have you seen with the work you do with Search Inside Yourself and different things that is becoming more of the norm?
Yeah, it is. And, one of my friends on the call, actually, I can see Donna, and Donna's doing some fabulous work in this area. She's launched a Future Work Skills Academy, which is all about the human skills for the future of work. And what we're finding, what the research is showing, that yes, IQ is important. Yes, technical skills. Yes, problem solving skills are important. But so are, and more as automation comes and technology continues to advance, as humans, we have to bring our humanity forward in work now, right? And those human skills, we're starting to see more and more companies starting to say, gosh, those aren't soft skills. This is where creativity and innovation really comes through. This is where inspiration and motivation comes from, right? So I think we're on this journey to seeing these uniquely human skills being embraced, being developed, being supported even more so in the corporate world. And to me, it's the connection to being able to deliver, to have high performance. Because what delivers your great performance? It's, you might have automation that helps with some of your routine tasks, but it's an inspired, motivated group of people that are aligned around a purpose and believe in achieving great things together. That's all the human skills, and that's what emotional intelligence is all about.
Yeah, it's so powerful, and you're right. I mean, we're talking more and more about this, and again, it's not in back-to-back meetings. It's not being depleted. It's not being exhausted. It's not all those traditional, very, the linear things that working hard is represented. That's not where the great results come from, certainly from a business or a human perspective. Bryony, you've got a question here, which I think is probably relevant to loads of people. So you're saying in times of stress, we're often advised to support ourselves first and others second. Yeah. At the moment, I feel as though I'm not supporting others enough because I have nothing left over. Any tips, please?
Yeah. If we were all together, we might raise our hands and say, who else relates to what Bryony is saying?
That.
Yeah.
Chat, people, raise your hand, put in the chat. Who else is feeling that they relate to this? I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. It's, here's a few. Yeah. Donna's saying, yes, and certainly during this time that we're living in, especially, thinking of our friends in Melbourne, thinking of our friends in the United States who can't necessarily see light at the end of the tunnel right now. It can be hard to resource ourselves. And this is where I think now more than ever, taking care of ourselves first with self-compassion has to be top priority. And I remember after a while studying mindfulness and emotional intelligence, and I was sort of at a point where I was like, okay, I can just wrangle my emotions and beat back my emotions and all the negative ones. And that doesn't work so well, especially when the negative and difficult times are persisting. And so the other part that I think is really important in emotional intelligence, and it's certainly a part of our program, is self-compassion. And what does that mean? Well, I used to think it meant, okay, maybe I need to go to the gym, or maybe I need to go to a spa, Self-compassion, actually, the research, and Dr. Kristen Neff is probably one of the best researchers on it, really talks about beyond mindfulness practice, which can calm the body and actually bring us back into center. Talks about a couple of other practices. One is recognizing common humanity. So sometimes when we are depleted, which many of us are feeling, it can feel very much like it's just me. But recognizing, especially now with the global pandemic, that we truly are all in it together. And so being able to recognize the common humanity, that I'm not alone, is important to resource ourselves. And then also acts of self-kindness. So how can we be for ourselves? And a couple of ideas on that is, there's a Rick Hansen, who's a leading neuropsychologist, talks about taking in the good. So when it comes to self-kindness, really taking opportunities throughout our day to take in the good stuff too. And especially right now, because our brains are hardwired, our brains have a negativity bias because that helps us survive, right? But during this time, we have to also take in the good. And so that might be really enjoying a great cup of coffee in the morning, really reaching out and talking to a dear friend. Just the other day, I got a compliment at work, and I, sometimes those don't come very often. And I just let it really soak in. Because I was like, as hard as this time is, how can I take in the good? And what we're doing, again, back to the brain science, what we're doing is laying down positive neural pathways that help resource ourselves so we can balance out the negative, balance out the times we feel depleted by remembering the good and strengthening that part of our brain to really lean towards the positive. So hope some of those kind of ideas, but finding what works for us is really what's most
Charlie.
important.
Good.
Oh, Cam, can you do some mute magic? Thank you. So Heather, is that that's also why, when we're talking about things like gratitude practices and those things as well, is exactly what you're talking about, isn't it? It's reinforcing the good and the small things and being present. Is that how that's working into this?
Yeah, it's great. And I was in reflecting on our conversation today, one of the practices I remembered that we do teach in as well, because the science is always evolving in this, and it's the practice of gratitude, but it takes it a step further. And so it's taking a moment to journal down something we're grateful for, but then it's the adding on to that and why. So a great cup of coffee in the morning. And why is it important? Because I'm so grateful I get to live in Australia, who has the best coffee in the world, right? And I'm grateful
I liked you. Here. Well, Melbourne, actually, right. But let's not get into a coffee war.
That's right. Yeah. But a gratitude practice with the next step, and why is that important to me, can be a wonderful practice. The other practice to think about is this also extension of defining new possibilities. And if I may just share sort of a failure that I went through a couple of years ago, and how this practice helped me is I actually was leading a sales organization, and I thought we were doing okay. We were on track to have a record year, and the global head of sales came down, and in his observation of me over a couple of days, had some pretty tough feedback from me in areas I wasn't doing so well in. And I felt defeated. And I was like, all these practices I've been telling you, I was using myself like that stop practice, stop, take a breath, what's going on, observing the emotions, proceeding with insight. I was doing those over and over. But the last part of it was reframing and looking at new possibilities. That once I sort of worked through those negative emotions, it was the questions, well, what else is possible here? What else can I learn from this here? And it really helped me reframe and position that, not to deny what had happened. And I actually had to leave my job and find a new path. But it opened up new possibilities for me because I started tapping into that sort of positive channel of what else could be possible here. Again, not denying what had happened, working through that, but then adding and now what?
Yeah, well, that's great. And now what? There's a good tip for you all that's very practical. You're right, because we do have the biases to the negative, and especially now, as you say, it's really easy to focus on everything that's not right and not going well. I love that. We've got another great question here, and I hope I get your pronunciation right. Is it Akanksha? I hope I got that right, but it's a great question about, a lot of times we start a new habit, best intentions. I think I was saying this to you myself, Heather, that we need to build for our well-being, but often we drop out of it sooner than we know. Any tips or motivations that work to have a sustainable way to meditate or practice mindfulness, even if it's for a minute a day? I think it's almost like you've answered your own question there. Maybe it is a minute a day.
Yeah, it's such a great question. It's forming a habit's hard, right? It takes a good 30, 45 days or so, they say, to really let it become a routine for us. So finding what works for us. If it's a minute in the morning, if it's a bit of journaling before you start your day, if it's a few minutes to calm the body at the end of the day. When I used to teach this at this investment firm I worked for, people would say, I use it on, none of us are taking public transportation anymore, but I use it, I breathe, I focus on my breath on the bus before I get home, before I walk in the door, before I see my family, before I see my kids. And that helps me create that separation and that little bit of space so that I can respond the way I want to as a parent. So finding what works for us is super important.
Thank you. Good answer. And Joe as well. Great. One tip I've heard is to add it on to something you do repeatedly every day, like every time you wash your hands or brush your teeth. Also, very practical tip as well. So Heather, you've been on here before. The time goes so fast. There's a couple of things I'd like. God, there's so much. We're condensing so much of your knowledge into 30 minutes. You chatted before, there's a couple of things. One about just let's explore a bit more the link between EQ and resilience, because again, I think, and I know where there are some foundational things that you're weaving through all of these, but I think it's really important to keep going back, because resilience is something I think we're all feeling at the moment. We're feeling tired, I think. And so what is the link between EQ and resilience?
So, great question. I mean, EQ is all about, again, building that self-awareness, building a self-mastery, but another domain is motivation, right? And harnessing positive emotions once we work through difficult ones, but also harnessing positive emotions that can help us navigate adversity, that can help us be resilient. And one of the things that I love is a practice that's all about remembering times when we have went through adversity, which we all have, right? It's part of being human. It might be personal, it might be at work, combination of those. Remembering those times, but then perhaps also then saying, what strengths did I draw from? What strengths did I have to help me adapt, to navigate, to thrive? And sometimes remembering those stories of strengths helps us know that even now, with what I'm going through now, or anything I face, I know these are the strengths I can draw on, and these are the strengths that will resource me and help motivate me to keep moving forward. So that's one practice.
Fantastic. And the other thing I wanted to just to get you to talk a bit more about, you mentioned compassion before, self-compassion. I know this is something that that you talk about. So why is compassion? So, I mean, it's in a way it's self-evident, but I think it's still worth talking about, like especially for yourself, but also as a leader of other human beings. What is the role of compassion during this time, do you think?
Yeah, it's, one thing I love, and you've had a lot of guests on your show, Alex and Kim, that have talked about how they're holding meetings and they're just checking in, CEOs are just checking in and saying, how's everybody? Right? That's empathy, that's compassionate leadership. Really caring about the good of other people is a wonderful trait that I think we're starting to see now during this time, because again, we're all in it together and everybody's navigating this as best we can, right? I love seeing that shift. But I bring it back to, we have to start with ourselves, right? And that self-compassion. There's a whole lot of great research that we don't have time to go into, but if anybody's interested in learning more about the research and the impact on our own happiness and well-being of self-compassion, check out Dr. Kristen Neff, N-E-F-F, Dr. Kristen Neff, and she's probably the world's leading researcher in that. She's the one that we referenced earlier that talked about this 3 areas of mindfulness, to calm the body, bring self-awareness, the common humanity, recognizing we're all in it together, and then bringing some real kindness and curiosity to how we look after and resource ourselves.
There you go. Well done, Cam. So Cam's on the ball with the link there. And so such a great resource as well. Heather, we've run out of time. There's a couple of things before we finish up. One, thank you for all your comments in your chat. I think we definitely need to start a book club, Cam, like we keep talking about. So if you've seen the link, Cam shared a great one around a book around sleep. The New Science of Sleep and Dreams by Matthew Walker. And I think
he's put Dr. Neff's self-compassion.org as Dr. Neff's website. So thank you, Cam.
Oh, very good. So we've got that as well. And so we've got lots of great resources in there. And I know, Heather, like most of you might know also that Heather's also done some masterclasses and programs for the FEW community in the past. And I'm sure I could potentially twist your arm to do some more in the future, but please do let us know if you'd like more on this, because this isn't even the tip of the iceberg, but it's been so great to have you here and to do that minute to arrive, and some great tips, everyone, of really practical, just being present, self-compassion, finding habits that work for ourselves, and just remembering that we're all going through this together. And I saw a comment in there as well that we've not done this before, so there is no template, and just to be compassionate and kind to ourselves and others is really the key, isn't it? So thanks, Heather, so much. It's been brilliant to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much, Alex, and take care, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to have the conversation with you.
Pleasure. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful Thursday. Don't forget, we've got masterclasses and a full week coming up next week. So have a brilliant day and weekend, and we will see you at 12 o'clock on Tuesday again. And remember, keep the feedback coming in. We want you to get huge value from this. And if you're not a member, it's time to join. See you soon. And thanks again, Heather. See you soon.
Take care.